How we do things.
And welcome to the Whip. It's another Saturday. And once you know it's the weekend, the Whip is going to be on. And of course, this is a program where we look at all things parliamentary. If you've been following our program, it is billed as a half-hour program, but sometimes we go a little bit above half hour. And we look at again all things parliamentary, the issues and individuals in the House. We look at bills. We bring scrutiny to motions, questions brought and answers tabled. And more so, how does all of this, how does our parliamentary work affect you, the average citizen? And as we come on this afternoon, we're going to ask you guys to share the live stream. If it is Saturday, you know it's the Whip. Welcome back to the Whip, guys, and let's look at the order paper for today. We're talking about whether you as citizens are enjoying the cost of living. We're going to be talking about the billions that were passed in the National Assembly for public servants, and yet that remains undelivered. We're also going to be talking about the billions that has been approved in the National Assembly for the farmers and other persons affected by the floods of recent that have been approved but have still gone undelivered. And then we're going to talk widely about the rising cost of living in the markets. When you go to the markets, you feel that ever so often of recent. And then we're going to talk about what is the role of Parliament in all of this to you, the ordinary citizens. Folks, I'm privileged to have with me today MP Jurita Finance and MP Kemraj Ramchatan, the leader of the Alliance for Change. Guys, welcome to the Whip.
Thank you very much, and good day to you, Sherrod. Thanks for bringing up this subject again in the Whip. And, well, you're the speaker here again. This is your order, people.
Jurita.
Thank you, Sherrod. A very interesting topic. I think it is most relevant at this time as we go to the market. Everybody out there would have experienced the rising cost of goods altogether.
Great. Guys, we were part of passing the 2020 budget. That was the first budget under the installed administration. We were also part of passing the 2021 budget, seeking to bring relief to the people of this country through our work in Parliament. To date, the head of the PPP administration, Irfan Ali, says that they are working on a menu of measures to bring relief to the Guyanese people coming soon. The minister responsible for finance within the office of the president, Ashni Singh, says that there's an optimal package they are working on coming soon. This seems to be an administration characterized by things that are coming soon.
Yeah, it is true. But whilst they're coming soon, we have people that are suffering and punishing tremendously. I think I had cause to tell you earlier, Sherrod, that we were in a Barry, but we also went to quarantine, and we also have gone to Region 3. And getting phone calls from people in Maikoni, and a number of people there are in serious jeopardies. They're pleading for foodstuff and even more hampers because of the flood, waters not going right down and affecting cash crops and even themselves in the sense of food to eat. Now, that is very dire a situation. But we had granted support as an opposition to the $10 billion appropriation that was requested. $10 billion. And we were told that it was needed immediately. And we had spoken to some of the senior leaders, including the finance minister. He had indicated that they wanted the money for within a week or 2 weeks for distribution.
Yes.
Did said that I have some concerns, 2 weeks, and they're distributing that money. Would you set up the systems? And also with Minister of Agriculture. And they said yes, because they had started doing that even prior to bringing that appropriation to Parliament. So I said, well, fine, good work. I'll give them the nod and the presumption of regularity. But to date, it's almost 7 weeks, is it? Or
More
8?
than 7 weeks. More than 7 weeks.
Yes. And it would appear that not one person has gotten a cent out of this $10 billion from my information. And they have not worked out anything. It is probably another bundle of lies that they were, introducing to us just to get our support in relation to this thing. But we would like to see, Sherrod, as the AFC and the APNU, I'm certain, Joe, and the APNU parliamentarian, we want the people out there to get the monies and whatever packages that they have to have almost forthwith, because that is why the money was so allocated, and we supported that. And to the extent now that weeks and months have passed, it would appear that the incompetent PPP there have not yet managed to work out all the arrangements prior to the distribution, although they had made promise that they are going to do that. And in the time of need, the people are not getting it. It is like medicine. And if you don't get it at the appropriate time when you need it, you can very much suffer doubly or triply that which you will suffer had you been given it at the appropriate time. So I think this is real sufferation of the Guyanese people out there as a result of not getting their act together, notwithstanding the opposition supporting it. And to the extent then, we are urging that it happens tomorrow, that the distribution can go as was promised. And this is causing tremendous concerns and trouble and worries for all of us here in the AFC.
Jurita,
I'm
as a trained economist, you understand these issues all too acutely.
Actually, I was just gonna pick up on what Kemraj was saying, because when we go into Parliament, Sheridan, and we have, especially when the opposition is given an opportunity to ask questions of the ministers on these allocations that they've come to the House for, I believe I would encourage Guyanese to actually tune in and listen to the questions and listen to the responses that are given by the ministers. Because as we're talking about the $10 billion, I would remember that when questioned about how the money will be distributed, what is the distribution mechanism that will be used, if you were going to be given cash grants, or are you going to be given hampers, and so forth, where exactly, what areas are identified to receive these things. None of those questions could have been answered because there was no plan in place to actually deliver those resources to the people of Guyana. And persons could go back, and Ershad, I would actually encourage you to go back and to have that video cut and to actually put it out there for Guyanese to see, because those things are very important. A lot of times persons don't pay attention to these little facts that we go through the day-to-day operations in the National Assembly. And Mr. Ramsden was right there. I know he was pressing very hard to get answers on these things. We're here today, we're saying that persons have not yet received any, and as we're speaking right now, to date, I cannot say whether or not there is a plan to get monies to the people, get the resources in any form to the people that are affected. So that's how serious these things are. A lot of times, as we read the budget presentation, when Ashley Singh spoke about economic dynamism and all those, and nicely packaged and all of that, but there's no real benefit within those pages, no real economic power given to the people so that they will be able to properly manage their homes. And that's where we are at the point we are at today. You spoke about the fact that public servants have not yet gotten the money that the vice president went forward, and he said, oh, well, in line item 6141, we have a $10 billion there that's going to be used for public servants. And that was just basically to calm the pressure that he was getting through the media at the time. And then we're not going to hear about it again. And that's the point we're at right now. it's very, these matters are very serious matters, because when we discuss cost of living on the increase in all of these things, the actual bread basket that the family have to consume, the price of goods are so out of control at this time that the bread basket is getting smaller. We go out to the market and we have a certain amount of money to spend on goods to last us for the month. Now, today, the amount of things that we could have purchased in 2020, we are purchasing half that amount today, sometimes even less. Everybody, we're moving forward. Nobody could move the superior good at this time except the PPP friends and family who's actually getting the big contracts. And so, right about now, everyone is looking for substitutes, commodities that can replace what we're actually used to, but we can get at a cheaper cost. And these are the facts that are before us today.
MP
Yeah,
Ramjitan,
yeah.
MP Finance talk about this bread basket, and I think the common man, the housewife, understands this. The husband who has to go out there and provide for his family, the wife who also is out there providing, working for her family, understands this bread basket and this hunt rather for substitute. And we know that the prices in the market has gone up. Shallot, bora, baji, cabbage, flour, salt, chana, aloo, cassava, edo, plantain. Rent has gone up. Diesel has gone up. And I like to quote independent sources so that persons get the understanding. It's not just the AFC talking, or it's not just Apple talking, it's not just PNC talking, but here's an independent source observing and feeling. This morning's editorial of the Sabbath News is pretty interesting. It talks about the incredible shrinking shopping basket. Starbucks News editorial, The Incredible Shrinking Shopping Basket. And I want to quote two parts of that editorial for the viewers. It says, in the first instance, anyone who shops on any of the country's vibrant markets, from Coriverton to Purico via border, will have witnessed over the past 2 months astonishing price increases for fruits and vegetables. They go on to include also, the editorial says, meanwhile, fuel prices have also increased. When Minister with responsibility for finance Ashley Singh announced a cut in the excise tax in February, the Guyana Chronicle wrote that it was expected that gasoline would drop from $184 per liter to 170, and diesel price from 170 per liter to 160. Gasoline now stands at $200 per liter and diesel at 185. Last year, President Ali himself had talked about an increase in cement, steel, and other construction goods. Anecdotally, according to the editorial Sabbath News this morning, anecdotally, housing rentals are going up, and the countless imported consumer products have also increased locally. MP Ramsden, your thoughts?
Stabrook has been remarkable with a series of editorials criticizing very constructively this government. And as I have always said, the surest insurance for a democracy is a free press. And Stabrook is of tremendously high quality in analyzing these things. I, like you, very much refer to them. But it is not anecdotal that the construction costs have gone up. It is the reality. I have been doing some construction to the number 47 residence of my mom and even mine here in Delft Street recently. And the thing has gone about 50% more, all the prices. When had prepared yourself for a $5 million expenditure, the thing gone to $7 million and $8 million. And, I could afford it. The trouble is what could be done by those out there, like the people in Maikoni, Abari, where the step getting rotten now because of the water flooded right up to the tops, landing and all kinds of things. Where the Falkub and the pen and so on have all gone broken as a result of what happened. Where are they going to find the monies and the increased prices? But also the public servants, because remember, when these prices lash you and you're still collecting, say, $100,000 salary or $77,000 salary, you as a result can only buy that less amount because of the high prices. It's called inflation. And that inflationary effect is now going to steal the purchasing power out of the monies that you get as an income. And there is where the people are punishing in this country. But the PPP, you know what they go and say to their bottom house meetings? They are on auto mode. And them nasty APNU AFC people, and them cause this for happen. You know, and I asked a couple of the people and in Abari, and they said that was the response. Is not them caused this thing here, sir? I don't understand the PPP's reckoning and confrontation with the realities of the country today. But it does appear that they're scatterbrained as a result of the crisis, and that is why they're not focusing on getting the things solved. One way of getting it solved, too, you know, Sherrod, is to engage us. We are not stupid people, we are not fools, and simply to get engagements from the APNU and the AFC coalition members, even in Parliament, we are going to be of help, tremendous help. And we know the difficulties in a COVID toxicized with flooding, which also can bring so much of those diseases, waterborne and all of that. And then with almost all the crops being destroyed right in region 5, region 6, and region the other regions, you're going to get these high prices. And what we got to do is to come together, engage, and ensure that we get the monies to these people so that they could fix up their farms where the flooding waters receded, so that earlier we can get cheap prices again for the greens and the bora and the baigan that we normally go to Border and Kitty and Stabrook and so on and buy. But they don't want our involvement. And that is what is causing this thing to be worse. And it is also causing tremendous resentment. And so this auto mode response that is APNU AFC's Ramjatan them, Kakai Ramjatan, all kind of names they calling people. And they're putting it in the social media, you know. And they're so disrespectful and exhibiting that epitome of arrogance. You see it in what they write about it. Just like how in the education, I noticed a feral blast coming forth from Education Minister Priyamanik Chan. Someone you know, I would have thought that would have been better at least confronting these criticism. And one of the best ways of doing it, Sherrod, and I will always say this, is to engage. We in the Alliance for Change and the APNU would want to engage. I met Joe Harmon yesterday. We were speaking to the British High Commissioner, the new lady that came there. And we were chatting and we were talking about all these things. And she too was somewhat concerned that there isn't the engagement that ought to happen between opposition and government, especially in times of crisis like this. So we are going to have increased evictions. Right now, I didn't even open up back my practice. I just tell some people that I'll be there. If you see the amount of landlords that are telling their tenants, if you didn't get to pay, get out the place, where will these people go? And you have to start also expanding the base of support. COVID relief now has to go. I don't know if you'll have to help out some of the landlords, because some of the landlords are saying that they haven't been paid rents for months because the tenants begging because they get knocked off and so on, even the country areas and so on. So the sufferation is huge and all across the country. And it is not only food that prices have gone up, but even landlord rental payments, evictions are going to, people going to go on the road now. This government really don't understand the implications and the ramifications of the economy as a result of this thing. It's broad-based, far wider than they think.
Brilliantly put. MP Finance, Kemraj injected the whole notion there of inflation. And just this week, for instance, we saw a stinging letter to DDL by accountant and attorney at law Christopher Ram, who we sometimes have disagreements with, but we know on these economic issues, he has his hand on the pulse of what is happening. Now, the union with the DDL workers came out to say that DDL is willing to give 6% increase for the next 5 years for workers. Christopher Ram came out in that letter to say, even at 60%, even at 6%, That makes no sense given the rate of inflation at 3.8, moving on 3.4. Sorry, moving on to 4% in inflation. And he made the point that on other goods, it is even higher on goods in the market, like the ones we have called out here. It is even far higher. So at 6% for the next 5 years, it's almost of no consequence. Your thoughts? Are you worried?
Well, we're all worried. We're the country needs to worry altogether. Christopher, he's correct in that assessment. Offering a 6% per year. I mean that there's a reason why when increases are done, more so it is done on a yearly basis. Therefore, you can make adjustments so that you can adjustments with consideration for the inflation, the rate of inflation that is going on within the country. You cannot just have a general projection that you're going to give a 6% increase for the next 5 years. That's crazy, especially at a time like this when you have the COVID and then there was a whole issue with flooding and all of these things. You cannot go out and have a projection. You can't make a wild, just pull a number out of the sky, basically, shared, because that's what is going on right there. He is correct. If you have an inflation rate of over 3%, how are you going to give someone 6% for the next 5 years? We don't know. We can do certain projections using various economic variables and all this the statistical tools that we can find. We can't even get into the technicality of those things yet. But to simplify it, to basically make it as simple as possible, what we can actually say to the people out there is, when we were in office, for example, every year, the APNU AFC administration came out to public servants and they say, well, we're going to give you this percent increase and we're going to make it retroactive. So you're going to get this nice payout at the end of it. All of those things are done, taking into consideration what is the rate of inflation in the country. Sherrod, some of the goods on the market right now, it's not a 3% inflation rate. Some of the goods on the market have completely doubled in prices. And that is basically having 100% or more inflation of that one particular item. So for you to go out and just say that, 6% over the next 5 years, it's you didn't take anything into consideration. You were looking at something that is probably just going to throw some water to cool the temperature. And a lot of persons do it, but we can't just cool temperatures. When you talk about a landlord situation, for example, we're saying that everything is going up and the rent is going up. That is something that if we are to scroll to social media, we're going to see a lot of persons complaining about a lot of landlord issues. I'm glad Mr. Ramjitan actually brought it up, because we live in a society, and persons need to understand, we live in a society in which is, when we talk about rental, the majority of persons that are renting in Guyana, you're renting from someone that is dependent solely on you for an income at the end of the month. And when you have inflation of goods throughout the country, the landlords now, what they were able to do with the rent that you were given to them before, they're not able to do it now. So the ripple effect is going to happen now, and now they're going to need more money. So they're going to be looking to the tenants to give them more money. Where are the tenants going to get this money from? A lot of persons are renting in this country, renting from the landlord living upstairs, they're renting the downstairs, trying to cover their mortgage and to buy whatever groceries they could buy at the end of the month to make ends meet. And this is the fact that we're dealing with. But we cannot at the same time not have policies in place. I mean, government have a responsibility to the people, and things need to be done to make sure that these things don't spiral out of control. You don't want a crash of the market altogether. So if you don't have regulatory policies coming in place, Mr. Ramtatan is going to have a whole lot more of those cases on his desk right now, because the government is not coming forward and trying to say, well, we're going to have a system in which we're going to ask landlords to come in, and we're going to have to try to put some method, some mechanism to try to cushion the effect that they are feeling right now from tenants not being able to pay rent because they have been dismissed from their jobs because of the COVID pandemic and all of these things. Government policies absolutely necessary to curb this spiraling issue with landlords and that aspect of housing right about now, because everyone is feeling it, especially when it comes to Georgetown and these areas. People rent. Basically, that's how it is. So government needs to get things done. You're muted, Sharon. I'm not hearing.
MP Ramjitan lives in this economy as well. So I am rather suspecting if the cost he's paying to repair the house, his mother's place in Region 6 and his home in Georgetown, as those landlords and tenants bring cases to him, his cost going up too.
Well,
But
I quite frankly do a lot of pro bono work, but of course, it all depends. That's the market for you. And yes, of course, costs will certainly go up. And almost all professional costs have gone up, I see. Even banking services.
that is what I'm coming to.
Yes, and
Yeah.
it's crazy. So we have an economy in which people like Ashley Singh feel that we are running forward, but we are running on the spot. And we believe that although running on the spot, we are reversing and retrograding from where we
Yeah,
were. And so to
yeah.
that extent, then you're not going to get the investments coming in as a result of the quality of the governance that we have that is attributing a big cost to investment. As a result also of everything going up like that, even the construction cost for the investors' infrastructure, that will soon go up. It has already gone up. And you find them now hesitating because when these big investors coming in to do infrastructure work and so on, and they now plan 100 million Guyana dollars, the thing now gone up to 140 million Guyana dollars. And where you going to get that extra 40 now, or you got to put it on a halt? That now creates what is called a delaying process. You don't know for how many months and all of that. So the whole economy will be impacted as a result of this. And that is why you had the American government and those technocrats in Donald Trump, even Donald Trump, trillions of dollars were given for people to ensure that they could have the meals and so on and manage to pay their rents. Trillions of dollars. I think it's about $2 trillion was literally given as COVID relief for America. They also having their climate change thing with fires and also flooding and a whole set of other things. But they are a mighty country. We are not that mighty. And so we need the monies as early as possible. And that is why I always will persist with this argument too, that we must not keep the monies inside of the Federal Reserve Bank of America. We must bring that and operationalize our natural resource fund and help the poor people to stop the suffering and punishment that they're now going through. This government, so inept and ridiculous. I mean, I find it absurd that they do not want to go and operationalize that fund. It's like when you're suffering from some major disease and the doctor say it will cure it, get the money for me. You got the money in the bank, but you rather dead than rather take out the money. It's a bad cultural habit. And PPP got that habit. They would want Guyanese to suffer death, probably in serious, grievous injury, rather than go and operationalize a fund that was made up from an example given by Norway, very democratic country, very experienced country in oil monies. But they want now so that Ashley Singh and Bharat and them boys could spend the money under the Kazakhstan model. That is an important thing. And you know what I noticed too? That a lot of the press, even Starbuck News and so on, not pressing and scrutinizing that issue, not doing that. And so it is important then. So whilst, you got grass there to feed the horse, you deny the horse the feed, and what will happen? So we are saying that a lot of things got to be done. The 10 billion got to be spent very quickly and forthrightly. More money's got to come out from the natural resources fund, and of course, all the time having transparency and accountabilities that go with it, rather than discriminatory treatment. But the better is going to come, the faster it comes, the better life under these very trying circumstances.
Yeah, and I want us to balance the scale because we've talked about how the man in the street is affected by these rising costs. The housewife, the husband going out there laboring to bring home the bacon for the family. We've talked about the landlord, and I wanted to go into a little bit in the weeds in terms of the businesses and the impact on businesses as well because we're seeing some of that. Let me circle back to frame this other aspect of the discussion to that editorial by Starbuck News this morning that is titled The Incredible Shrinking Shopping Basket. As part of this editorial, Starbuck News says, as for the Because We Care program, it is a good basis for payments as it focuses on school children, but it is also somewhat cumbersome and unnecessarily politicized. It was remarkable to see ministers of government unzipping suitcases full of cash as part of what the Department of Public Information declared as a reflection of love for future leaders. The editorial says the cost of transporting these ministers and their entourages around the country must be astronomical. And is it really the best use of ministers and the parents' time? I want to use that to frame the discussion. There was a letter appearing in the daily newspapers from a businessman named Zaire Ali. And he said that businesses were encouraged, for instance, to sign up with the government to clear and to process the education cash grant, at least the 4,000 aspect. He said that they were shocked in the business community because the parents were given cash as against these vouchers. And this is what he said in that letter. He said that small businesses that deal directly with these items are going out of business. They are going out of business because parents are not coming to shop these particular school items from the businesses that cater towards them. He said they were shocked and hurt that the government did not give out these cash vouchers. And again, in his words, small businesses that deal directly with these items are going out of business. Your thoughts, members of parliament?
Juretta, go on.
The first thing I thought, and I did read both of those pieces, Sherrod, and the businessman. I understand where he's coming from directly, because when you give the vouchers, it basically constrained the spending. It's just a form of having an indirect control as to where these monies are actually spent and who are the real beneficiaries of the resource. So usually when you give a school voucher out, persons have to go and buy school items with it. So you go to the stores, and that's what he is speaking about. And he had this assurance that, well, his business would have been opened up to receive these vouchers, and so at the end of it he can go and safely cash in. But what it told me when I saw that those monies were given out in cash and not through vouchers, what it told me specifically is that the Minister of Education, although she went out and made some bold statements as to the reopening of school in September and so forth, when I saw the distribution mechanism that is being used currently for that program, I immediately know that she has absolutely no idea when school will be reopened altogether. If she was confident in any mechanism being put forward or utilized by the government to gear gear schools to be opened anytime soon, then they would have had no issue to issue those vouchers specifically to purchase school items. But that specific action made me realize that they have absolutely no idea when in the near future school will be reopened. That's why they did not go down that route altogether. But sure, as a government, everything that is done, you need to take these things into consideration. The business community is extremely important, and you can't just go and make a wild decision and just like that without taking them into consideration. But as you know, we have the private PSC, and the very fact that we have the representatives of those bodies being so politicized, um, they're not actually making decisions or having discussions that are in the best interest of businesses. Their decisions and everything that they're lobbying for now is a more on a political front. And these are the issues that we have when we have representatives from these bodies that are supposed to be speaking on behalf of the business community, now speaking on behalf, now acting on behalf of the government.
Fantastic there. And Kemraj, I don't know if you want to jump in.
Yeah, I want to jump in because
Go right ahead.
important to understand that policy and regulations at least will enter the realm of getting the objective realized. So if you really want to help not only the children by them getting the educational, whatever it is, you'll have to do it via that voucher system, and so that you'll also help these medium to small scale businesses. And that is what policy and regulation does. It shapes human conduct, or largely or substantially does that. So if you had created that voucher system, you would have gotten two things at least substantially accomplished. Namely, that school books or whatever, the uniform will be bought. And then the small businesses that are doing this, even right up to the tailors and so on, that have to cut them and mend them and do whatever and get the trousers and the shirts and so on. All of that will certainly be ensured. But when you just dole out the cash, parents now have the choice and they will say, well, I got to feed the kid, I can go and buy something. Mm-hmm. And so the important objective that is supposed to be realized is not realized. And so that you could have all being neutered or neutralized to the extent that, nobody benefits that objectively had to be benefiting from the beginning. So it is a very crass way. But you know what? The PPP's purpose behind the whole thing is that, look, I be give you $19,000 up new AFC when them been inside them give you anything. And that is what they also do. They are masters of propaganda, And so they go out there and they tell the people, but they didn't do anything. But when you compare the buses that David Granger provided, and you mark down for each day what was the transportation cost for how many people and so on, you will see that the thing was far more than $19,000.
Yeah.
Far more. And it went directly for children's benefit, school children.
As a matter of fact, that very 19,000 is a broken promise because they had promised 50,000 to school children.
But actually, Sherrod, let me jump in with, because Mr. Ramson is hitting on a very, very important point. Because when you're looking at policy altogether, there are various stages that you look at in policy. You look at the policy formulation, then you look at the policy implementation, and then at the very end, you look at the policy evaluation, right? 99% of the times, if not 100% of the times, when the PPP look at policy, they just look at the policy formulation. They're going to come forward and going to say, this is the policy. They don't put much effort into the implementation. That's why distribution mechanisms and so forth are things that we never clear cut with their policy decisions. And there is never an evaluation point whatsoever. So the whole point in having a policy is that if you actually this program is called Because We Care, right? What is the actual goal of this Because We Care policy? You're giving this money. You're saying that all the children, in order to get the money, you have to have a child registered in the school system because you want to direct these resources to school children, right? Now, what is the end results that you are looking for at the end of it all? That's what you come down to, the evaluation period. I'm going to tell you, people does no evaluation when it comes to these policies, right? They just do the formulation. They have very haphazard implementation, and then there's absolutely no evaluation. So there's never a real chain of events, and they never follow any structure as when dealing with policy altogether. And I can compare and contrast, because Mr. Ramjasan was just speaking about the fact that when the coalition was in office, we had a lot of well, the David Granger boats, buses, bicycle, books, boots. And there was all these B's. I mean, it started as a 5B program, and it just was breakfast and all of these things. It was expanded, and because it was so designed, the policy was designed in a very uniform manner. The implementation was so uniform, and because of that, Shara, the evaluation was so easy to do altogether, because once all the resources were channeled directly at the students, they were implemented to benefit only the students. And the end of it, Guyana received the best ever results in exams and so forth. And that is the easy evaluation process that we could have gone through. The way in which it is being done right now, I can tell you, because I've said it before on a different program with you. Guyanese right now, we're in such a state of devastation because of the poor management of the economy under the PPP, that $19,000, when parents collected those long lines to collect that money right about now, when parents collect those monies, they're heading straight to the market because they need to buy things for the kids to eat. This is not something that is going to go into actually making sure that your student, the children are at home, and they have more resources to do online learning. So it is not sufficient.
Yeah.
That money cannot make any real difference in creating an environment at home for for children to actually benefit really from those programs. So parents now, with the increase in prices, like we were speaking about earlier, the bread basket is shrinking. People are in desperate need of help. So when they get this money now, the most natural thing to do is to make sure your children don't starve. So you go out there to the market and you buy something that's for your child to eat. So in essence, the program, the money will not, you wouldn't have end results that is beneficial to students as in the educational factor, but it will provide them with a few meals. And that is the truth of the matter. That is why I am asking again that the government look into the increase of the public servants' pay, because you can't come with these one-off nonsense. Feeding
Yeah.
a child 2, 3
Yeah.
meals is not going to compensate for the money that the increase in the public servant salary, that would have actually made a real difference in the lives of people and in the lives of children. Because if persons have more disposable income altogether, they'll be able to do more for their children. This little handout process that the PPP intends to go forward with has to stop.
Yeah, and there's another side to this high cost of living as well. And Kemraj, you know this more acutely than most of us, because you have served as the minister of what is now Home Affairs, was former public security. With this high cost of living, we see a high crime rate as well. I mean, we're on here, and for the morning, you've had we see one headline here: six motorcycle bandits rob woman of $2 million. That was a payroll of a small company. Battered body of fuel tanker driver found in vehicle by owner, and we can go on and on and on. And we'll have some more headlines. Sorry to say, before the day is done. The installed administration promised a crime plan aimed at less crime and safer communities. That is still coming soon. Former Minister of Public Security, what do Guyanese make of this situation? Rising rate of crime, rising cost of living. You wake up and you want to know, how do I make sense of my day? How do I make sense of my life under the PUP in this country?
Well, Sharad, it compels me to do that which I do not like to do. Because, as you know, I'm an optimist. I always believe that the long arc of history and the evolution of the Guyanese society will be tending towards more progress, notwithstanding all the fights and this and that what we will have. But what this kind of reality that confronts me informs me is that which I don't like to say. It is the catastrophizing of this country. Everything is a catastrophe. And that is why I use the word, and has come up with some of these words like control freakism and so on. But it is a
Let's see here.
catastrophe, and the catastrophe of another generation of our young people who in about 10 years time might very well have to write CXC and then go to university. They're missing out a whole year's education and probably a lots more because of the mismanagement. It is all another catastrophe. But one of the biggest catastrophe is public security. We see a polarized police force now. Those that are supportive of the Conway and Paul Slow arrangement, and those that are saying that no, those people should be suspended, and so on. And then inside of the police force, a number of officers who seem to have a tendency to wanting to support the government as against professionalism. They prefer political interference. All of that is going to create a vulnerability in law enforcement that will entice the criminals out there who, by the way, have, because of the economics of the situation also, it will compel them to go and do their mischief. But because of the fact that you have a vulnerable police force or a little one, or one with major deficits, not little deficits, major deficits, they're going to take the chance. And then the whole system then becomes one that is criminalized, because sometimes not only those fellas that robbed the lady the $2 million, you will have rogue elements in the police force who we know, and as public security, I know who gonna ask them guys when they arrest them, where are $2 million there, and gonna take a portion of it, and all kinds of things. So you have another catastrophe facing us, and that is this tremendous insecurities that will abound all across the land. And then, of course, when that starts to happen, Sherrod, and people are not going to get caught or they're not going to get convicted, a whole heap of other people are going to feel that this is how we should get rich. And a lot of these things are happening. As soon as we come off government, one set of them cocaine dealers start selling more cocaine overseas. One set of them buying helicopter and so on now. One set of them dealing with all kind of airplane and this and that. And I don't know if that's civil aviation, a political interference by the government got anything to do, because this government is well known to be very close to cocaine dealers and the criminalized state, as Professor Thomas had written about. And so we have gotten back there. And you know what that would mean? The troubled times again, because executions will start happening, because there will be factions within the criminal fiefdom, and then all manner of things will happen. And so again, I am saying that this bad mismanagement of the country, the not wanting to engage with the opposition so that even the opposition could put in its words and meaningful consultation with other professional technocrats and so on in the area. And that is what is causing this country, which, you know, just before was on the brink of greatness, being spoken about by the IDB and the World Bank and the IMF and all of that. Where are we today? It is worse than when we had left it in 2020. So, you know, the catastrophes will be forthcoming as a result of them not wanting to engage us. And we're not even getting our parliament going yet. You get 98 days prorogation. They don't want to move any motions or accept any of our motions. And now we got another thing, and we're going to end up going right down to the recess. When is the recess starting? I think it's August
10th.
around that time, and until October again. So we can't even ask questions. We can't even go in parliament and debate issues. This is where this commandism, this authoritarianism of the PPP happens, when they shut you out completely, and that is their control freakism. So the crime situation is going to get on, is going to move further negatively, and we are all going to be sufferers as a result.
You're muted, Sharon.
MP Finance, any interventions there?
Actually, I agree with Mr. Ramjitan altogether. Crime is out of control, and every day that you're seeing it, and At this point, I believe unit community community spirit is it's most needed right now. I see a lot of the communities, especially in Georgetown, it's everybody for themselves, and when we have that attitude as a people, it does nothing good for us collectively. A lot of times in which criminals, these criminal elements, whether petty crime or not, are allowed to roam the streets, is because people don't come together and actually put a stop to it. The police have their job to do, but it's I believe that we need to put our heads together as as residents, and just have this community spirit all together to see what we can do to help the situation, because we do not want criminals to be at our doors, so to speak. You
Hmm.
don't want these
Hmm.
things to get to your doors. If you know that there's something going on within your neighborhood, if you know that there's drugs being dealt in your neighborhood, as a community, you need to get together and make reports to the police station and so forth, because these are things that affects us. It doesn't it doesn't affect the police and the police force. These are things that affect us. So we need to be very vigilant as people, and we need to start making reports to the police station. And I know a lot of times people say that, well, the police are not going to do anything. They know the criminals that are operating and they're not doing anything, because that's reports that you hear a lot on the streets. But it is our responsibility. Let us do our part as citizens to go out there, make the reports and all of those things, so that we don't have we have done our part, basically. But I'm sure I want to touch on one little thing that Cameron started to mention when he spoke about the attitude of the PPP in Parliament, and the fact that basically they're trying to shut everything down and to shut us out of everything. And I want to give an example. Everyone would have been following the whole PAC issue, and the fact that the PPP abused their majority and voted out David Patterson from chairman as from the PAC. We
Yep.
went into um, the PAC. The speaker called another meeting after that vote, and a new chairman was elected, German Figuera. We had two meetings, the Monday and the Wednesday, and then we had a meeting last Monday again. Now, I'm mentioning this because at the last meeting on Monday, mind you, Monday is a statutory date for the PAC to meet. That is a date that was designated from the inception, from the very start of the PACs. Every Monday, the PAC meets at 10 a.m. Last Monday, when we met, Bishop Edgel said that he's asking for the meeting to be concluded at 1:30. Mind you, when we're meeting, we are scrutinizing various agencies. So we had the police force there, and we had other agencies there waiting to be called in so that we can deal with them. He wanted it to be to end at 1:30. At 1:28, we were just done with the police force, and we were moving into the Ministry of Public Security, because we separated to scrutinize them separately. Bishop Edgel, right away, let his voice be heard, and he said at the beginning he asked for the meeting to be concluded. So the chairman was saying that the same PS that is there for the police force, it's the same PS she's sitting right there. These persons took time off. We wrote letters as a PAC inviting them to come on that statutory date, so they can answer questions from us regarding their ministry. They're right there. Why would we send these people away just because yourself and Mr. Share have somewhere to be? Why would we do that? That doesn't make any sense. Let us move forward with this. Mind you, the PVP made it their duty. They went to the press several times and spoke about we not wanting the work of the PAC to go on because it's our years and all sorts of nonsense. I say all of that, Sherry, to bring you to the action of Bishop Edgel when we try to have a reasonable discussion with him on that matter. He said, I am putting a motion to this floor and I ask that it be put to a vote to end a statutory meeting at 1:30. This is the action of the PPP and the PPP ministers right now. He's
Okay.
basically saying that the PAC will do whatever they want to be done and they will not do what they do not want to be done. Because every matter that we don't have an agreement on, he will put a motion and he will put it to a vote because they're five and we're four, regardless of the fact that we have the chairmanship. And I want to bring one other thing to light with that. Of the five members there were two other members,
Mhm.
and Siraj and Mahadio. Both of them sitting there. They have nothing to do. They have
Competent,
no
hopefully.
they have nowhere to go. But that motion that he was putting to end it was basically a motion of no confidence in the two of them. Because he's basically saying that we have no confidence in these two people to carry on the work of the PAC in our absence. So they're basically, it's as though they're having them there as placeholders on that committee. But that is the strong armness that the PPP is bringing to make sure that they stymie the work of the PAC altogether. So these are things that the public needs to be very, very aware of.
Well said. Well said. And we have to stay vigilant. We have to stay vigilant on every front because the PAC, the Public Accounts Committee, has a very important role in scrutinizing the spending of the government, especially in this COVID season where they're spending billions and billions of dollars in this flood era, post-flood, where they're spending billions of taxpayers' dollars.
But
The relevance is
I want to
even
actually
more
say
so.
something else about the PAC, and you started out a new I'm glad that you actually mentioned the editorial that came from Starbuck News because the PSC, when we're scrutinizing the various departments and ministries, the media is invited to come in to be a part of that. It's done in camera, and you have the media representatives there so they can carry out various stories. Sharon, I was shocked at the end of the last PAC on Monday with the reporting of the media, especially the ones that came out on newsroom. Now, Mr. Ramsden rightly said that any strong democracy needs to have freedom of press and so forth. But the very least I expect is balanced reporting coming out of these media houses. I have seen the last PAC last Monday. There was no aspect of balanced reporting coming out of that particular meeting. It was completely biased altogether, and I can say that without reservation. And I hope, and I will be calling out. I personally will be calling out the media reporting from the PAC moving forward. The PAC is statutory every Monday, Sharon, and I tell you, I will be giving an update on the reporting that is coming out from the various media houses, whether or not it was biased or not, because as media entities, it is your responsibility to make sure that you do not appear to be politically aligned. You cannot go to a PAC and just report one side of the story. There were tons of things that happened at the PAC at the last meeting that the media did not even touch on because it would have brought into question things from the PPP. All the reporting that came out is something to say, oh well, this is what happened. Oh, but anything that you can jam to the coalition, oh, we're going to pick up this. It is unprofessional for media houses to be carrying on like this. If you come into the PAC to do reporting, have balanced reporting. All media houses should be there. Those are things that concerns Guyanese people. It concerns spending of the Guyanese. But I'll give you one example before I go, Sharon. We were discussing the fact that they were there was actually overpayment to a contractor, and Mr. Edgel went on and on about the overpayment to the contractor, and it was in the amount of $337,000 or something thereabout. $337,000, and he went on and on about it being a corrupt practice and all of these things. Mind you, the Auditor General had it marked off as cleared, because the amount was recovered in full. It was paid off by the contractor. I think it was done. They had a discussion with the PS, and it was done in installments. Now, there's one thing that I'm super super fast with when it comes to these things is that whenever I scrutinize anything at the level of the PSC, I don't look at the situation in isolation, because if I'm going to be effective on the Public Accounts Committee, then I have to look at these things collectively. If I'm seeing collectively that there's a trend of overpayment regarding something, then you have to look at it holistically to actually find a amicable solution to the issue. So immediately I went back, because I love soft copies and everything. So all my documents are open in soft copy. And I went back to the fact that right there at the PSC, we were examining the matter that was telling us since 2013. Under the PPP, there was an overpayment in excess of $4 million by one of their ministries, and not one penny was recovered to date. Not one penny. And I went at length to bring that forward at that meeting, to say that we need to look at these things holistically. But the news report that came out at the end of that meeting only spoke about the $337,000 that was recovered in full, made absolutely no mention of the 4 point something million that is yet to be recovered from 2030 when the PP was in office. So when I say that it's biased reporting, I know what I'm saying. I have the evidence to put forward. But Sharon, we have a long way to go. But we're going to be in this. We're going to keep fighting.
And I love the fact that you guys on the PAC are very, very vigilant, and on the parliamentary and parliamentarians rather, generally on the opposition side, are tremendously vigilant in these and many issues. Unfortunately, we have to stop our discussion here for today, but I want to thank you, Juita Finance, Member of Parliament, and also Kemraj Ramjita, Member of Parliament and leader of the Alliance for Change, for spending this time with us and delving into these very, very nuanced issues and bringing so much guidance and clarity. Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Great. And folks, there we have it. And as we go, we encourage you guys to social distance, wear your mask, sanitize, and practice all the COVID-19 protocols that are in place for your health and your safety, that of your friends, family, and loved ones. And you guys know, once it is the weekend, it's the whip.